I saw Wicked a few days ago and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Here's my thoughts. Before we get into this, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Wicked. Did you love this one? Did you not love it so much? As always, join the conversation down below. Wicked, the untold story of the Witches of Oz, stars Emmy, Grammy and Tony winning powerhouse Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, a young woman misunderstood because of her unusual green skin, who is yet to discover her true power, and Grammy-winning multi-platinum recording artist and global superstar Ariana Grande as Glinda, a popular young woman gilded by privilege and ambition who has yet to discover her true heart. I have a bit of a staunch rule on this channel that I don't post movie reviews for movies after their opening weekend. In the past, they have just typically not performed very well, but a number of people have reached out to me and asked me to do a review for this. I guess a lot of people know how much I love The Wizard of Oz, the original 1939 film, and how much the movie means to me, and they just kind of want to hear my in-depth thoughts on this one. I unfortunately was unable to make the media preview here in Melbourne that I was invited to by the wonderful team over at Universal Pictures, but they were happy enough to send me along a pair of in-season passes to go and check it out. I saw it over the weekend, and man, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this movie since. So I thought, look, I'm going to make an exception here. I'm going to experiment a little bit. I'm going to throw this review out into the universe, and we'll see how it goes. I've got a lot to say, so I'm happy to put a little review together for this one. If you're unaware, The Wizard of Oz is my favourite movie of all time. It is the keystone moment that I can pinpoint and say that is the moment where I fell in love with cinema as an art form. I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. Probably my very first memory of sitting with my grandmother and watching The Wizard of Oz. I can still tell you the situation under which we watched the movie, why we watched the movie. I can tell you where I was sitting in my grandmother's living room watching the movie. I can tell you my ethereal reaction to seeing Dorothy step from the drab, sepia-toned world of Kansas into the Technicolor land of Oz for the very first time. I vividly remember this moment because this is the moment where I fell in love with cinema. And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you out there right now if it wasn't for that moment and that movie. I could go on for days about how much I adore this movie. I could talk about it like so much, but this is really not the place for that. This is not a review for the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie. This is a review for Wicked, the 2024 adaptation of the Broadway stage play, which was a prequel sort of readaptation of the movie and the original novel, sort of mushed up together. The novel, by the way, is my favourite book of all time as well. It's my favourite story ever. I went into Wicked totally expecting to dislike this movie. I have had a disdain for the stage show for years and years. I never liked the way that the stage show positioned itself as the true story behind the story. The true story behind the movie, the true story behind the novel, whatever be it. I mean, the Wicked Witch was not green in the original novel. She was green in the original movie. So the stage play really positioned itself as like the true story behind, you know, whatever. And I never liked that because it goes out of its way to give backstories to characters that already had backstories, whether that be in the movie or in the original novel. And they were like just so completely different. I saw the stage show when it was first in Melbourne. It must have been the best part of 20 years ago, probably. And I didn't like it then. And probably for just a very selfish and finicky reason that I didn't like that it placed itself as the true story. And then it made up a bunch of fan fiction, essentially. So yeah, I went into Wicked just really expecting that this was going to be like my least favourite movie of the year. I thought that I was going to have an awful time in the cinema watching this. But because of my love for The Wizard of Oz, I knew I had to check it out, and as soon as I could. I'm very hard to please with Wizard of Oz media. It's probably very obvious at this point. Any movie, any TV show, any book that kind of tries to readapt the story, I go out with like a fine-tooth comb, and I just very, very hard to please with anything related to Oz because of what the story means to me and how much I love it. So I was always going to be very hard to please with Wicked from the very beginning. I was probably sat in the theatre like a bit of a Grinch, just kind of like fully preparing to be grumpy for the next 2.5, nearly 3 hours. But as soon as the movie starts, this is one of the single most wonderful movies I have ever had the pleasure of experiencing. This movie did so right by the original movie and the original story. I know that it's an adaptation of the Broadway show that I have spent so many years just completely disliking. This experience of this movie was just, or of this story was just so fresh and new to me. I feel like I was able to come at it with fresh eyes. And I'm finding that with a lot of media recently, where I'm revisiting movies that maybe I didn't like 15, 20 years ago and finding that I really do love them. I will say that they have kept Dorothy's slippers in this movie silver, which is what they were in the original book, and not ruby as they were in the movie. So in some respect, I felt that there was a bit of a distance there between this and the film. This wasn't trying to rewrite the film. It wasn't trying to be the true story behind the film. I was more open to experiencing this as a separate thing. You know, we have so many, we talk about the Marvel movies where you can tell so many different versions of the same character because they're in a multiverse. I can accept this as a Oz multiverse installment because it's so far removed from the movie or even the book. It's its own thing. And I found myself appreciating and consuming this media as its own being, in its own separate place. And it is so hard not to love this film, because absolutely everything about this is near perfection. Visually, of course, it is stunning. There's been a lot of discourse online recently about how desaturated the colours are, how it's not entirely colourful, and I do agree in some respect that it could have been a little bit more saturated, it could have been a little bit livelier, but then I also do appreciate John M. Chu, the director's kind of reasoning for attacking the movie this way, is I wanted to ground it in reality a little bit more. I don't know if I agree with that 100%, but I understand where he's coming from and appreciate that, and I don't think I would mark the movie down any further because of that. Would I have liked to see it a little bit more brighter, a little bit more colourful? Yeah, probably, because this is Oz, this is the Technicolor land of Oz, but again, maybe that just kind of separates this as its own separate piece. It's telling its own story in its own space, and we don't need to be replicating what's come before. And I appreciate that big, bold move of putting a different spin on Oz. The original film is so beautiful and vibrant and colourful. The book is a little bit more drab and quite depressing. This kind of takes a more positive, upbeat look. It does have its moments where it's quite sad and quite emotional, and the Elphaba's story that it's telling really is a parable. It's a metaphor for race relations and how people of different ethnicities are treated by society. We're not going to dive too much into the deep and heavy stuff here, but it has a kind of a deep and meaningful story to tell, but it tells it in a very positive, lively way that I really appreciated. So I love the visuals. It is just stunning to look at. It is a gorgeous film. It's not overly colourful, as we've said, but it still looks beautiful. This movie uses big, lavish, real sets, living, breathing sets. And that's why the original movie is so wonderful, is because it was all handcrafted. You can feel the humanity in it. And this movie gets that right. Of course, there's a lot of CGI in here. There's a lot of computer work and stuff in here. But it uses real big sets. Perhaps on a scale that we haven't really seen since the Lord of the Rings films in the early 2000s. That kind of then leads into the way that this movie is kind of really attacked as a grand musical of the golden age of Hollywood. This so beautifully emulates the incredible MGM musicals from the golden age of Hollywood, 1920s through to, I guess, pushing into the 1950s, 60s. Stuff like The Wizard of Oz, which is just so big and so grand in scope. And there's so many other ones, all the great Judy Garland ones and Doris Day films and all those wonderful musicals, the Gene Kelly films like Singing in the Rain, and then of course the Busby Berkeley stuff of the 1920s, the big lavish choreography stuff, you know, people in big circles just doing insane choreography and underwater choreography and just all that big lavish stuff. And this movie really aims for that. There's a couple of huge sequences, especially if you've seen it, you'll know the first sequence where they enter the Wizard or the Emerald City. It's so big and so lavish, and it's just so golden age MGM Busby Berkeley infused. Again, cannot think of a contemporary musical that so beautifully emulates that style of film so succinctly. So many, there have been incredible musicals over the last few years. West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's, I mean, incredible film. But the pure scale and scope of this is just on a whole other level. It just so amazingly encapsulates that classic MGM musical style, unlike any contemporary movie I have ever seen. Performances in this movie are stunning. I was so surprised by Ariana Grande's performance in this. I have been, I wouldn't call myself like a big Ariana fan, Arianator or whatever they call themselves. I appreciate her music. I think she has a beautiful voice. She is one of the best singers around. She has incredible control over her voice, and her versions of these songs are incredible. Popular has been in my head for a week. Been in my head for like 2 weeks since I saw the clip online. But her acting is otherworldly. I know she's an actor. I know she has a background in acting. I know she started in acting with Nickelodeon. But I was a bit old for the stuff she was in, so I never really saw it. So I have never really known her as a performer. This is my first real experience of her as a performer, and my lord, is she just perfection. Her intonation, her kind of little quirks that she brings to this, her comedic timing is insane. I've not seen comedic timing like this on the screen for a long time. She has her bearings around performance so well, and she's a huge fan of the musical too. This is like a passion project for her. She has always wanted to play Glinda in Wicked, so you can tell how much she loves this role, how much she has studied it over the years, how intensely she has related herself with this character and gone in and out of it. And it's all up on the screen, and I would not be surprised if she was nominated for an Oscar for this, because her performance is just so stunning. Cynthia Erivo, on the other hand, I'm very familiar with her work. Not her kind of Broadway stage stuff, but movies and television. I thought she was incredible in The Outsider a few years ago. That was my first real kind of introduction to Cynthia's work. And I have loved her work since. She's just such a great, powerful performer. The character is so different, and she's having to reach into different parts of her soul than perhaps Ariana with this. They're two completely different characters. So Cynthia Erivo is taking her performance from a completely different place, and it is just beautiful. It is so heartfelt and so heartwarming and so heart-wrenching and gorgeous. And I tell you, the final sequence, the big, huge, defying gravity moment, I just lost it, man. I lost myself. I see so many movies in the theatre. I watch a movie a day at home. I have watched thousands of movies in my life, but it takes a very special film to have that ethereal moment that I was talking about earlier with The Wizard of Oz, where you just completely lose yourself in a film, and you just completely feel yourself being enveloped. Your whole being just being sucked into the movie. It's that immersion, and it's so rare for me. I think maybe because I have seen so much stuff, it's so rare for something to touch me in that way, to get to me emotionally, physically, even in that way. Like, this whole movie for me was like a big build-up, and I just felt myself getting sucked into the whole film just the whole time. I was so immersed the whole movie, but it was like this huge build-up to this finale. This incredible, huge, show-stopping, defying gravity, and it was euphoric. Cynthia Erivo's performance of the song is incredible. It comes from another world, and just what director Chu did with this. I could feel the wind in the breeze as she was flying through the air on her broomstick. I could feel it. It wasn't there. There's no wind in the cinema, but I could feel it. And I felt myself going into the movie and into the character. And it is such an incredible, immersive, euphoric moment. I just completely lost myself in it. And yeah, I shed a tear. I shed a tear or 2 or 3 or 100. A bucket of them, a popcorn bucket of them. It was one of those moments I'll never forget, and it will go down as one of my favourite moments in a cinema of all time. And this is why I get so worked up. There's been a lot of stuff on Twitter and over the last few days of people like taking pictures of the screen in the cinema, people filming in the cinema and posting like full scenes online, and it really annoys me. Like there's this one post where someone posted the entire Defying Gravity sequence and was like, oh, I was so mesmerized by this scene, I just had to film it and post it. Like, if you're so mesmerized, how are you then thinking, oh man, I have to pull out my phone and film this? No, I lost my whole being in this moment. Like, I was there. I was on that broomstick, man. I was in the film. I was not thinking, I gotta film this and put it up on social media. I think that's just the wildest thing. That's crazy. And that's why I get so worked up about this, and why I get so worked up about people spoiling movies for people online. A movie comes out and 2 days later the whole bloody thing is posted from people recording in a cinema. I hate that. I hate it. Because it's these moments where we get to experience something firsthand on the big screen with the surround sound in an audience of other people who are feeling the same emotions. They're there right there with you. That's the way to experience a movie, not on Twitter. Suffice to say, I adored this movie. I haven't stopped thinking about it for a week, and I can't wait to go and see it again. Hopefully I'll have time over the next few weeks to check it out again. If not, I'll see it when it comes to home media. I don't know that there's much else I can say about this. I think I've touched every base possible. Performance is amazing. The grand scale of this is great. The direction is daring and brave and experimental, and I love that and appreciated all of that. And I think just overall, it's just such a beautiful story, and they have told this so wonderfully, and it's one of the best musicals. I think it's my favorite musical that has come out in my lifetime, and I just can't wait to experience it again. I'm so excited for the second part. I think I'm so happy and I'm so elated about this because I went in with the mind that I wasn't gonna like this. I went in like totally prepared to just be a Grinch, and I didn't want to like this. I didn't expect to like this, but the movie just won me over within a matter of seconds. It's just that kind of picture. It's just so special. Everything about this movie is so special. And at that, I will be giving Wicked a 5 out of 5. And at that, once again, I would love to hear from you. Have you seen Wicked? Did you love it as much as I did? If you haven't seen it, what's your expectations like for this one? As always, join the conversation down below. And if you've liked this video today, don't forget to hit subscribe. If this does well, I think I'll do some more of these. Thanks again.